Okay, so 1, 2, 3. My name's Nancy Sposato and I'm a multidisciplinary artist.
My name's Marg Coutts and I'm an art therapist.
And we are the creative directors of Blackbird Creative Bushfire Recovery Project.
So I was thinking about what worked so well about the project and all that we learnt along the way. And I think the framework that we developed to support people to enter that creative, poetic space was really fantastic.
Yeah, and I loved through the course of doing, so we've done a workshop now, we did a workshop in February. All the workshops have occurred in the Nambucca Valley, so the first one was in South Arm, and then we went to Taylor's Arm and then New Tungan. And through the journey of making all those works, that for us in our conversations, honing in on what that poetic space was that we had to even take them to.
That's right, right. So I guess identifying it and defining it for ourselves, so that then we could support the participants to go there.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And from a performing arts background, in the creation of making theatre, of setting space, it's got a lot to do with time. And for me that was, I guess, I felt like I was drawing on those tools of, it's actually a lived experience. And so how do we frame that lived experience? And like we were saying before, actually framing that hour and a half of the poetic, creative part of the day, because the day was much longer than just that hour and a half.
That's right, and that was really interesting for me, and I think it's a beautiful, unique aspect of what we do together with you, having that performance background and me with the visual arts background, and the way those two things come together, so that then we could frame the space for people so they knew what they were dealing with. And I think that helped contribute to a safe container for people to enter this realm, which is very unusual for people to, what does it mean to live in your imagination, or what does it mean to process something creatively? And most people don't have a great understanding of that. So it seemed like that was a really key part of what we needed to do.
Definitely.
To, get anywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Because also, particularly in these regional communities, you're good at art or you're not good at art.
That's right.
There's it's so...
And never the twain shall meet.
And so that is a big part of practice in these spaces, is making it accessible, teaching people how to even, maybe teaching's not the right word, but supporting people to even be in the space.
Yes.
And be open to being okay in a space that they might have previously thought they weren't allowed to be in because they weren't good at it.
That's right. And I think, that setting that time was a really important part of doing that. And the other thing I think that was really important was letting people know that it was quite likely that it wouldn't make sense. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense, it's actually why we're here, to have a break from this mind that needs to make sense of things all the time, which has its purpose, it has its role, and it's really important in the recovery process. But if we're just constantly working with that part of our mind, then we're not accessing the deeper embodied parts of our experience, which is often where trauma and emotion are stored. So I think the way we kept giving people reminders of it may not make sense, it may be confusing at times, it's just within this hour and a half time frame. I think those two things really created the safe container for people to basically go into what was the unknown for them.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And so our the creative experience that we were setting up started with the sharing of guidelines in terms of this framework, and then it moved into a physical practice, very gentle physical practice, then into more visual arts practice, and then into our reflection. And what I learned through this process is I've come from a background of quite a physical background and movement awareness that is still, for some, a really difficult area to be able to access and to deeply access
in their body.
Yeah, what embodiment to actually really be in an embodied place.
Yes.
And to let go of this and to go into a felt experience. But I guess what I was mindful of as well, even in the process of making it very accessible, also being very conscious that needed to be a gentle process. Because I guess if people do go into that embodied place, like you were just saying, that is where that trauma lies.
That's
and
right.
So then you're, I guess, opening up the gates, the window for something to flow.
Yes. And so then I think, that's the beauty of the combined disciplines of the, physical performative discipline with the visual arts. Because the visual arts has a very soft, gentle way of supporting people to express themselves, where that rational mind is at rest, and a much gentler experience of the emotional life can be felt through the art making. So if things are kind of accessed through that physical experience, they can be gently processed through the art experience. And I think at the same time, when people are art making, they can similarly access experiences, memories, felt sense of things that they'll never get to if they're thinking and talking through the process. And I think, we saw that in a number of cases through the workshops where people were able to paint about their experience in a non-kind of linear cognitive way and come back, if you like, from that imaginative space with new information about their experience that helped them make meaning that move towards healing and resolution.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could be kind of minors into their own sense of self, and then gently through the process, and in a really positive way, because I think there can be joy and pleasure in actually turning this off. Like once they find a way to come into switching this off for a second, there can be peace and relaxation there.
And that out breath that you talked about in the workshop, and that one person actually speaking to the whole group, I found my out breath.
Yes. Yeah. And noticing at the beginning of the workshop, can I exhale? No, I can't exhale yet. It's still just up here. And then and you might not even exhale by the end of the workshop, but if in a couple of weeks' time you discover that exhale, what made that exhale possible?
So bringing the mindfulness into the whole physical and visual experience.
And what you were saying before about we started with the physical and we moved into the visual, but we kept the visual a very physical practice at the same time.
That's right, and that I think worked beautifully, like having the paper all on the floor. And we allowed for people whose mobility wasn't strong enough to work on the floor, but most people being able to work on the floor, and that act of getting down and getting up and moving to another place and getting brush or washing brush or another colour of paint, the whole painting experience, rather than just be sitting in one spot, became a physical, active process.
What's the texture of paint?
Yes.
How large, how small, So yeah, making it a really physical experience.
Yes, movement of the arm.
So then connecting what was going on in the body onto the page. I guess, yeah, just to finish off, I feel like we both felt that a really important part of the practice that we honed through all the workshops and will continue to hone is for people who, yeah, potentially come to a space where they felt uncomfortable about being in an art space, or actually then becoming aware that they were processing through art making. And that was really important, that we weren't processing through, that this is a different way to process. Yes, sometimes we really need the cognitive on, because in terms of recovery, there's certain things that just need to be done, and we need to be thinking in that way.
Yeah.
But then to give them this other tool.
That's right. Yeah, and I think that is a beautiful thing about this work in recovery, that people who wouldn't normally use the arts to process their experience are getting access to this way of healing and reaching some kind of greater resolution around their loss and trauma. And you know, it's beautiful that in such a small valley, well, it's not a small valley, but small communities within the valley are able to access something new and fresh that, you know, is potentially life-changing in terms of how they move on from here and how they process their life experience. And
it was so beautiful that I think my favourite piece in all of this is that through the process they find a very deep personal well, and no one, they are the experts in that well, and they can speak to that place and be heard in that place, and no one can doubt their expertise from that place.
That's right.
And so there was a beautiful levelling of humanness.
Yes, and I think that's kind of integral in building healthy communities towards recovery, so that, you know, people are actually standing up, and in that whole end phase where people actually stood and walked amongst the artworks and spoke about the significant points for themselves and being witnessed by everybody else in the group. I think that was really, yeah, a fantastic way to build community cohesion, where it's not coming from this sort of cerebral needing and wanting and frustration and anger and not being heard, but coming from this, yeah, deeper well of this is my true experience, and yeah, being witnessed and validated in that.
And aware now, even to build that greater awareness that everyone is a walking, unique experience, and the practice of allowing that to be, yeah, felt really special.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And, you know, just seeing that there were people who were frightened, who they were literally frightened at the beginning when they thought they would have to paint. And, you know, being able to provide that container so that they could find a way to do that wasn't frightening and that was actually, you know, healing and nourishing.